In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to separate simulated or spot process manually. Coming up. Hey, welcome back everybody. If you're in the market for Adobe Photoshop or Illustrator, use our link down in the description. What it will do is help fund our channel, so that way we can continue to make tutorials such as these, and it doesn't cost you any more than if you're just to go over to adobe.com yourself. Okay, so I have some artwork that I pulled off the internet. I found the largest image that I could use that looks like it would work really well on a black t-shirt. So here is our artwork, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Image and Duplicate. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to drag this off to the side. The reason being and why I am doing this is I want the original image for a basis of comparison while I am doing these separations to do simulated or spot process. Okay, so here's our duplicate image. When a client provides artwork, you want to make sure that they're providing it at full print size at 300 dpi. No more less than 200 dpi. So let's res this up a little bit. We're going to go to image and size. You can hit Command Option I as your quick key. I know my maximum print size is 12 by 15. So I just, in height right here, I just put 15. I'm going to hit OK. And what it's doing is it's just resing it up a little bit. Hit Command 0 to get it back to the general overview. Do the same thing for this image over here. Command 0. Now the next thing I'm going to do, I'm hit D on the keyboard, make sure my foreground color is black. Actually, you know what? It's my background colors that I need black, so I'm going to hit X on the keyboard. I'm going to go to Image, Canvas Size. I'm going to res this up by 1 inch on both dimensions. So that way we can feather the edge out. I don't want the edge of this to be, if I were to print this on a t-shirt, I don't want a hard edge on both sides. So now at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a brush quickly, hold Option and Control down, and all you have to do is drag your mouse a little bit. What it will do is kind of resize your brush. Hit Command minus, and I'm just going to go in here, make sure my foreground color is black. And I'm just going to feather some of these edges out here. And all I'm doing is clicking from one point to the other and holding Shift. That will do pretty much a continuous brush stroke instead of having to go in and manually draw it. I'm going to try not to affect this too much, but for demonstration's sake, it's not that big of a deal. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I might feather this just a touch more so it doesn't quite look like a rectangle. Now that we're at this point, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hover my mouse over RGB, hold down Command. For you PC users out there, just hold Control, click on RGB. I'm going to go over to Select, Modify, Expand. And we're going to expand it by 1. And you'll find this is going to be the common theme throughout this entire tutorial. At this point, we're going to go over here to our Create a New Mask. We're going to hit that. Hit Command D. Go over to our layer and hit Command I. And what that will do is inverse it. So now at this point, what is black is what will actually print down. That will be your white. So what we just created is our white base. So I'm going to call this white base. Hit enter. I'm going to go back over to RGB. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to color range. And I'm going to go to reds. And I'm going to hit OK. Back over to select. Modify. Expand by 1, and then I'm going to create a new mask layer. Let's call this red. I'm going to hit deselect, Command I to inverse that, And we're going to repeat this down for every single color that you are about to see here. So select color range. We're going to go to yellows. We're going to hit OK. And at this point, because there's very little yellow, it will give me a little bit of a warning. I'm going to hit OK. So we're going to go over to select, modify, expand by 1. It will give me that same warning again. However, I'm going to go over, make a new mask. I'm going to hit D to deselect, Command D, hit Command I to inverse it. And you can actually see that there is some information here. And I'll show you a little bit of an easier way to figure out whether or not you even need to make a channel. In this case, we are making a channel, but this will end up being the amount of screens that you will end up screen printing down. So let's go back over the RGB, select color range. We're going to go over the greens. And you can see here I have white mask selected. It doesn't really look like there's a whole lot of green in here. The reason I did do the yellow is because that yellow will be in her face, and that's what's going to make those flesh tones. So I'm just going to hit cancel on that one. I'm going to go over to select color range. Let's go back over to cyans. Hit OK. You can definitely see there's information there. Select, modify, expand by 1. Make a new alpha channel. And hit deselect. I'm going to call this cyan. Hit Command I while still on that channel. Go back up to RGB. We're going to keep going forward. Select color range. Blues. You can see there is some blue information here. But what I think I will end up doing, because I do only have a 6-color press, is I probably will end up just merging that blue with the cyan. So let's just go ahead and hit OK. You see it's giving me a little bit of a warning. I'm going to hit OK. Select, modify, expand by 1, OK. Hit OK again. New mask. We're going to hit Command D. Go over here. Invert it. We're going to name it blue. Back to RGB. Select color range. Last but not least, for colors, magenta. And you can see there is a little bit of magenta. We might end up merging this into the red, so that way we can stick to our 6 colors. Because we only have a 6-color press. If you have a press with 8, 12 colors, keep that in mind that you want to limit it to the amount of colors you're able to print. So I'm going to go to select, modify, expand by 1. And we're going to make a new mask. Command D. Over to our channel. We're going to call this magenta. Hit Command I to inverse it. So now you see what we're actually printing. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create a highlight color. And how you want to go about doing that is selecting your blue channel. You're going to right click on that. Hit duplicate channel. We're going to call this white highlight. And it's very important that you do select invert. Otherwise you'll have all kinds of issues and you'll kind of be wondering what's going on. So I'm going to hit OK. So now if I go down to that, you'll see my selection for the white highlight, and we're going to adjust all these, and I'll show you that here in a moment. So our next step at this point is we're going to just make a new channel by clicking this new button here. It's completely black. I'm going to drag that up to the top just above white base. Let's call this black t-shirt. I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to double click on that. I'm going to make sure that it is indeed black and it is reading 100% opacity. So that's great. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to double click on white base. We're going to now designate this as a spot color, and we are going to make sure that it is white. And we're going to make the solidity 85%. Use 85% for your whites just kind of as a default. You can always go back and adjust it a little bit to get the results that you do want. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Now I'm going to go over the red, double click on it. You already have a red color selected here, so I'm going to select spot color. Now for the rest of these colors, I'm going to make them 5%. And this channel here, I forgot to label it, but I do know it is yellow because there's hardly any information here and it's making up those flesh tones. So I'm going to double click on this, make it a spot color, and then I'm going to go over to my CMYK percentages here. And I'm going to make that a true yellow. Hit OK, make this 5%. Okay, I'm just going to go down the line. So 100% cyan. Okay. 5% solidity. We're going to go over to blue, make it a spot color. 100% cyan. 50% magenta. 0 for the rest of the values. Okay, I'm going to make that 5% again. Hit OK. And then we got our magenta. Make that 100%. Yellow 0. OK. Spot color. Solidity. 5%. And then last but not least, we have our white highlight. Make that white. Spot color. Once again, 85%. I'm going to hit OK. So now at this point, we can turn all of our colors on. And you'll see that we're getting closer to actually having all of our separations done. One of the things you want to do is just go ahead and turn the white highlight off. And then we're going to start working with the white base. I'm going to click on it. Hit Command L to bring our levels up. Now you don't want to compress it too much on this end. You kind of want to work with your middle fader here to kind of work with some of these values here. But in this case, because there are some pretty dark spots over here, we may need to compress it just a little more. Just keep that in mind. So we're just trying to make this look similar to this over here. And what you're going to have to do is just mess around with your level sliders. And this is your essentially your 100%. This is your 0%. This is your in-betweens, your 50s, 25s, 75s, all that fun stuff. So I'm going to pull this back. And we're going to gradually just tweak it, each one of these, until it gets closer to the results that we're looking for. And keep in mind, we do have our white highlight down here that will help boost some of these colors here. For example, this skull here, whatever this is down here, it should be white. Our white highlight will definitely affect that and make it a bright white. So that looks pretty good for the moment. Let's go over to our red. Hit Command L. Bring our levels up. We might want to boost that just a little bit. We even might want to change the color of this red. Something a little warmer. And just keep in mind that whatever color you do end up going with, that is what you should use in your screen. You know, it's not too bad. I think we'll just leave it as is. One of the things I'm going to concentrate on is her face right here. So I'm going to mess with this middle slider just a little bit. I think that's fine. Let's move on to our yellow. And now you can tell if you go really extreme just how much this affects this artwork. So let me slide this around a little bit until we get the shade in her face that we're looking for. So I'm going to hit OK. We're going to go over to cyan, Command L, and continue down the line until it starts to look more like our example over here. Now, because we are doing these separations, it's not going to be 100% spot on. You can get pretty close, but some of the things you have to do is you have to do a lot of tweaking. For example, with these reds, you may have to do a separate selection for those and go in and tweak that manually. In a case like this, you may even need to make a black layer, which we may end up doing. Okay, so there's not a whole lot of blue here. One of the things I'm going to do is hold down Command, hover over the blue channel here, click on it. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to go over to cyan, make sure my foreground fill color is black. I'm going to hit Option and Delete. So that essentially combined the cyan and the blue. At this point, I'm going to get rid of the blue because there's not a whole lot there. What information was there is now in the cyan layer. Next thing we're going to do is go over to magenta. There's not a whole lot on the magenta side, so I think I'm going to do that same thing. I'm going to hold Command down, and then I'm going to go over to red. Make sure my foreground color here is black. Hit Option Delete. So now that essentially merged those two colors. I'm going to hit Command D. Go over here to magenta. I'm going to deselect that, or delete it, excuse me. So we're starting to get a little closer. At this point, what I would do is I'm going to go ahead and turn on my highlight white color, and that will give us a little more information here. So I'm going to go down to my highlight white, go over to Image, Adjustments, Brightness and Contrast. And as we start to slide this, you'll see that we're starting to get some results towards where it's starting to look closer towards the poster. And you can even boost up some of the contrast here. That's looking pretty good. I'm going to hit OK. Go back over to my highlight white, go to my levels, and I may pull some of this back. And what we're trying to avoid is some of the hard breaks interface here. The more you compress it, the harder the breaks are that you will have. You can see these breaks going on now. We want a gradual transition with those tones. So I think I'll pull this back a little more, get a little closer to where it needs to be. I think that's looking pretty good. I'm going to go back over to my white base. Now you can see here that we are using 5 colors to achieve what we have going on thus far. So if you are happy with the way it is at this point, you could just use 5 screens and you would get these results here. But I'm going to tweak it some more and hit Command L on our white base. And I'm going to pull back some of these colors here in what appears to be smoke. Might be some sort of concrete background or something like that. And I'm going to compress it just a little more. Get it looking a little bit more like our original example here. And I think we're starting to get a little closer. Now I'm going to hit cancel. I'm going to go over to Image, Adjustments, Brightness, Contrast, and see what that gets us. Because some of these shoulder pad parts here, it's not quite there just yet. And it's okay using some of these extremes to really kind of figure out where things are at. The goal is to get as close to this image as we can. It's starting to get there. Yeah, I may just hit cancel on that. Let me try this. Let's go over to RGB. Let's go to Select, Color Range. We're going to use Sample Colors. We're going to come up here and select our black. And we're going to mess with our fuzziness just a little bit. And some of the things I'm paying attention to are the shoulder pads here, the body of the suit. And I'm going to hit OK. Now I'm going to make a new channel. Let me back up a step. Let me hit Undo, Select, Modify, Expand by 1. New channel. I'm going to deselect that. Come over here and hit Command I to inverse it. Double click on it. Let's name it black. I'm going to go to spot color. Make it black. We'll make the solidity 5. Now let's see what we have here. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the black just above the red. Generally one of the printing orders that I like to do, white, black, red, yellow, cyan. If you do incorporate a gray, you generally want to do that right before the white highlight. So let me go to my black, hit Command L, and we're just going to mess around with that a little bit until we start to get some of the results that we're looking for. All right, let's try that. We'll hit OK. I'm going to hit Command Undo. See the changes that we have made. Turn it on and off. See if we're any closer to where we need to be at. I feel like it's starting to get there. Black might be a little overwhelming. Let's go back over to our white base. Actually, let's go over to cyan. Let's see if we can't pull that back a little bit. And what I'm looking at is some of these areas here. I feel like it's just a little too bright in this particular separation. So we're just kind of tweaking that at the moment. Go back over to my white base. Going to tweak that just a bit. Maybe even compress it just a touch more. Let's turn off our highlight color. That's still looking pretty good. And we're starting to get there. This definitely is a process. One of the things I'm not too happy about is this red. Let's go to the channel of the red. Let's see if we can boost it a little bit without affecting her face too much. Or, you know, it might even be the color. So you just kind of have to play around with these things a little bit. And so I'm trying to boost this red here. So I think one of the things I'm going to do is go back to the RGB here. And I am going to go to select, color range. And I am going to select this red. And I'm trying to find the point that looks like it's the most red. Mess with my fuzziness a little bit here. I'm going to hit OK. Go back over to my red channel. Option D. Let's hit X on that. Option D again. Command D. Command 0. Get the overview. And let's take a look at our results. Looks a little more red. Let's kind of back up a step. I'm going to mess around with that just a little bit more. Looks like in our white base, we may just need a little more white behind that red just to really make it stand out. So let's go back over to our RGB, select color range, come back over to this red, select it, pull our fuzziness down just a little bit, hit OK. I'm going to go over to my white base. I may go to select, modify, and I'm going to feather it by 1. Get a little bit of a smoother transition. D on the keyboard. X. I'm going to hit Option Delete. That should give us a little bit brighter of a red. Let's see how that turned out. There we go. Now we're talking. That's looking pretty good. Let me change the color of this red. Mess with it just a little bit. See if we can't get a little closer to our image over on the left. Okay, so I'm going to hit OK. There are some hard breaks here. So I think I may just go back one more step. Go back to my RGB. Select, color range, come back to my red, maybe increase the fuzziness just a little more. Let's try 100 and select, modify feather. Let's do it by 2 this time. And let's hit undo, select, modify, feather. Let's feather it by, let's try 5. Let's see how that works out. And I accidentally hit the crop adjustment by hitting C on the keyboard. Not a big deal. Okay, we're over on our white base. Hit Option Delete, making sure black is in the foreground color. Let's see what that gets us. Actually, let me back that up. I think I put that on the white base. Let's put that on red. There we go. That's looking better. It's looking more like a bright red here. And because this is a low res image, we are getting some pretty hard breaks going on there. But for screen printing purposes, I think this will look pretty fantastic. Might go back and change this red just a little bit, but you know, you can always go back in your screen and put whatever red you want in there. Might adjust my highlight white just a little more. Let's cancel that. Go back to our red. Hit levels. I feel like we lost some of the flesh tones in her face there. Okay, so I think that is looking pretty good. Might tweak our black just a little bit. And so you can see what I'm doing is I'm going back and I'm just kind of going to each channel, messing around with it for demonstration's sake. I think this looks really good. There is more work that I could do to it to get it closer to this picture, but I'm pretty happy with it for now. If I were to print that, it would look fantastic. So what we're going to do at this point is we're going to go to our white base, and we're just going to label this number 1. We're going to go to black. Number 2. I'm going to go down the line, and this will be the print sequence in which you need to set your screens up. Probably could have done that in the beginning, huh? Okay, now that we have all that set, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these channels here, and I am going to delete those. And before you do that, you could go back and save it. For demonstration's sake, I will just go ahead and save that. And we'll just save it as a Photoshop file, include our alpha and spot channel, spot color, excuse me. We'll just go ahead and save that real quick. Now at this point, as we were doing, we're going to go ahead and take these and we're going to just delete these channels. You could also just take those and select it and then go to your garbage can, delete those channels, and then I'm going to hit Command-Shift-S. And what we're going to do is we're going to save this as a Photoshop DCS 2.0 file. Make sure your spot color selection here is selected. And what that is going to do is going to save each one of those channels as a spot color, and it will bring it into Adobe Illustrator. So let's go ahead and save that. It will save it as an EPS, like hopefully I just mentioned that. But preview TIFF, that'll be fine. You do want to save it as a single file DCS, no composite. You can use ASCII 285 or just ASCII 2. We'll hit OK. Now, I'm going to take my registration template, which you guys can get from our website. We'll leave a link down in the description. You can go over and purchase that for $5. So let me go to my templates here. I'm going to open up my registration template. That's going to create a new file. In this case, we're going to go over to our art layer. And I will drag this below the center and registration marks just to make sure those are on top. I'm going to find my file. Let's go to our desktop. And here is our EPS file. You can see it does have quite a bit of data here. It's 122 megabytes. We're going to go ahead and place that down. As you see, as it imports it, it is importing each one of these spot colors, and it will place it into our swatch palette here. So it is placing it down on the artboard. Pretty large file. Now it may look a little sloppy here, but how it comes out on film and when you go to press, it will look just like we had it in Photoshop. So I'm going to center align this to the artboard. I have to give it a second because it's a large file. Don't have the fastest computer in the world. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to make sure my registration marks, I'm going to lock the art layer, make sure my registration marks are out of the artwork. Just using Shift and the arrow key. Just going to kind of center this up. And the registration and center marks are designated as a registration color. So that way your registration marks will print out on every single piece of film. So as you can see here, we do have our spot colors. We got our white base, our black, our red, our yellow, our cyan, and then our highlight white. In this case, if I were printing down black, I would feather out this border here, or the hard edge, so that way when you do go to print it on a t-shirt, you're not going to see that. So essentially you would kind of feather it along with this edge here. Now how I would go about printing this film at this point is I'll hit Command P for print. We have AccuRip and a Epson 1430. AccuRip is set to, I would suggest using 42 to 45 DPI at 22.5 degree angle. And what you can do is you can click output here, and you will see that you have your 6 spot colors that will print out, and that will print every single one of your separations. So at this point, all I have to do is hit print, expose some screens, set it on press. You will use 230 mesh screens, print your underbase, give it a couple hits, flash that, and then go back and print every single one of your colors wet on wet. What that will do is allow those colors to mix up and give you the results that you are seeing in Photoshop. Now you will have to do about 4 to 6 just kind of test prints before the ink really does build up on the back of those screens, and you will start to see the results that you're after. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I really do appreciate it. For those of you that did stick around for the entire tutorial, I really appreciate it. We've had some requests to do more of these tutorials. So don't forget, guys, if you're in the market for Adobe Photoshop or Illustrator, use our link down in the description. It'll help support our channel, so that way we can continue to do tutorials like these for you. As always, don't forget to subscribe. Hit the little icon down over here. We have some more videos for you over this way. And go over to our Facebook page, give it a like, give this video a like, subscribe, share, all that great social media stuff. And until next time, guys, we'll see you later.